So now we're going to turn our attention to looking, supercharging your game growth. Ads, IAP and beyond, supercharging your game growth. With Antonio, who's just sat down, I'm going to make him stand up. Sorry, Antonio, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
Come on through. Do you want to stand here and talk, or?
Yeah, I'll go in the
Okay, well,
center stage, why not?
I'm going to leave you in Antonio's great hands. That's just to click
Yeah,
the green one.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay, great stuff.
Thank you very much. So I think we're ready to get started. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining today. I will be taking you through the results of a study that we conducted with the IDC. And for this, we partnered with over 500 publishers, gaming publishers worldwide, to get some real insights in how they run their business and how they can maximize their growth potential. My name is Antonio Ribeiro. I'm a strategic partner manager at Meta on the audience network team. I'm on the left, by the way, so don't get confused. And so, to get started, we could focus on a question, which is, are you building a great game, or are you building a great gaming business? Hopefully the answer is that you're working towards both. So we know that a great game is essential, because that's the starting point for everything. You want to create a game that players enjoy and get entertainment out of. But at the same time, you want to be focusing on the strategic planning that goes into the business aspects of the overall equation for success. And so to build a great gaming business, as we established, you need a great game, but you also need teams that will help you take your business further and have the talent and the skills and the expertise to be able to run all aspects of monetization. And so today, hopefully, we'll help you with a little bit of that. And so we're going to focus on three main areas. Maximizing your growth potential. We're going to have a look a little bit at how user acquisition relates to all of this, and also looking a little bit ahead. So how to plan for the future with some of the new platforms that are coming up. And just before we get started into the actual numbers and everything, just a little bit of context. So we know, and this was part of the reason why we wanted to do this study, is that we know that the last couple of years have been, quite disruptive for gaming businesses. There was obviously Apple's release of iOS 14.5 last year. There's a bunch of new regulations that are still limiting the way that we get mobile identifiers and how to attribute revenue. But the good news is that we know that high-value players and the monetization opportunities, they're still there. They're just a little bit more difficult to find, and publishers and gaming publishers have had to adapt in order to capitalize on that. So this is what we wanted to find out, like how did they adapt in face of these changes? And so what we saw, the answer we got was that as the app ecosystem continues to change, publishers are adapting. And we wanted to know specifically on the impact of iOS 14.5. And while there were a few publishers that said that they did see a decrease in ad spend and also in ad monetization, the overall majority actually said that their ad spend and ad revenue either stayed flat or increased. So we have 83% saying this regarding ad spend and 89% saying this for ad revenue. And then there's also Android. It's not pictured on the slide, but we also know that about 37% of the surveillance, they also stated that they have increased and shifted some of the ad spend to focus more on Android, at least for now, because there's probably other changes coming, but for now, they've shifted to Android. And so this looks quite optimistic, and that's why the lady's smiling so much, because apparently there's a lot of money to be made out of this, because the IDC is reporting that in 2026, around $63 billion will be paid to publishers from in-app advertising. And Omdia is projecting for 2022 a 26% increase, and for 2023 a further 18% increase in ad revenue. So these, despite all the changes, these are all very positive numbers that motivate people to still continue to invest in ads. And so all the potential is still there. Publishers are saying this, industry analysts are saying this, And so we wanted to find out how many of the publishers we surveyed are already using ads. And the vast majority, that's good news, already is. That's 93% of publishers that say they're already using in-app ads. So if you look at the reverse of that, means that there's 7% that have yet to integrate ads. So we think that that number is going to keep decreasing over the next year or so, because we saw that trend over the last couple of years as well. So there's still a few people needed to convince, but I'm sure we will be working on that. And so a few key metrics that we've got was, obviously in-app ads is great for revenue, but what other effects does it have on key metrics such as retention and ARPDAU? And this is where the research, I think, gave really good results. So over 50% of publishers stating that when they use this hybrid monetization strategy, in-app ads plus in-app ads, that they saw an increase in ARPDAU. 30%, so we also have great results in terms of retention and LTV, and even on increase of IAP as well. And so with that context out of the way, we're going to be focusing now on what actions can you take in terms of ads monetization and for your overall strategy. So going a little bit deeper in some of these models, we found out that when we asked publishers, that a lot of them are already planning for in-app ads and ads when they launch the game. And this is crucial because they stated that by doing this, they saw a 62% increase in ARPDAU and to also meet their retention targets. So this is crucial. You're planning ahead with IAP and ads, but even if your game is already live, and obviously there's games that have been around for 5 years, 10 years, and they've had to integrate ads in their games after the games were launched, 44% of the respondents also say that they see better results in ARPDAU and retention when they integrated ads. And we're going to have a little bit more detail on that. So the other key aspect is what ad formats to choose. So there's a variety of ad formats that you can use today. And even some games will have more than one format. It's quite common to have rewarded video and banner ads, for example. And so we wanted to find out what was the most important ad formats for publishers. And this means that the one that was generating more revenue for them. And so 23% said native ads. If you're not familiar, those are the kinds of ads that are highly customizable to sort of match the look and feel of your app. 23% said banner, which I don't know if that's surprising. At least to me it was. I thought the number would be lower. But then it's important to remember that banner ads are quite popular, especially with social casino games, with hyper-casual games. So that's mostly where that number is coming from. Surprisingly, only 7% said that interstitial was their most important ad format. So it doesn't mean that more publishers are using it, but the most important one, which I thought was lower than I expected. And then this one was not surprising, 47% saying that rewarded video or the incentivized video view is their most important ad format. And we know this because, and I'm going to discuss a little bit more and spend a bit more time on rewarded video, but it's that very positive value exchange between the player who gets something for free and also the publishers and the advertisers. And so we wanted to find out more specifically on rewarded video and interstitial ads, what are the most common entry points, or the most successful, I should say, for these types of ads. You can see behind me both I don't know if you want to take a picture, I'll set it to the back, but we can see both rewarded video and interstitial. At least for rewarded video, which I find where there's more creativity sometimes involved in terms of the entry points, daily mission was by far the most important entry point. And then in close second, we have the home screen, we have the post session, so the post level as well, and also the in-game store. The in-game store is quite particularly interesting because it can be seen or used by some publishers as a way to get players to get into the IAP sort of mindset. So that's also, I think, why that's so relevant and important. And so rewarded video is great for revenue, as we saw, 47% of the publishers agree. But there's added benefits that come with rewarded video, we found. So 74% of publishers said that after introducing rewarded video, that the number of players either stayed the same or increased. 29% saw an increase in lifetime value, and 39% mentioned that they saw an increase in IAP. And I love this last number because there's always been this idea that introducing rewarded video can cannibalize your in-app purchases. This proves that, when done correctly, that's not always the case. And the reason we believe that this happens, this increase in IAP, is that with rewarded video, the player sometimes gets free bonuses, items, etc., to spend more time playing the game, to getting more engaged with the game, and potentially converting to a paying player as time goes by. And so, with this in mind, it's important to, you master the IAP plus IAA hybrid model, but there are also other revenue streams that publishers are exploring, and we asked them precisely which ones were they and what growth they expect over the coming year or so. So 31% expect growth in in-app revenue, 38% say they expect growth in IAP revenue, which we've covered, and now these next three, which are new, 31% expect an increase in subscriptions, 31% or 14% expect a growth in sponsorships and licensing as well. So these are not always applicable to your game, and that's absolutely fine, but based on these results, it's something that is worth exploring. And so now we're going to touch a little bit more on user acquisition. And you might be thinking it's strange because this is a monetization session. Why are we talking about acquisition? Because that's a topic that we could spend a whole 20 minutes discussing. But what I wanted to discuss here is that one of the best findings we got out of this survey is that 67% of the publishers, they've decided to do this sort of unified strategy between monetization and ads. And so we wanted to find out more why. And the main benefits or ways that they say that they're doing this is that they're using this to build groups, and demographic groups and segments within their game, and also creating and using some of these groups and segments to apply different monetization options. So it's quite common to see some of these groups to identify countries with large IAP penetration, so they can hold off on ads in those regions. But on the flip side, with countries and regions with low IAP, they can potentially start serving ads, potentially rewarded video first. And what are the benefits of this? According to them, is increasing ARPDAU. Another aspect of user acquisition that sometimes publishers forget, but is linked with ads, is cross-promotion. So if you already have ads integrated in your game, whether that is interstitials or rewarded video as the main formats, you can use already that integration to promote other games in your portfolio within that game. And we see that 83% of publishers are already doing this. So by creating the mechanism of in-app ads in your game to connect to whatever demand source, you already have a channel for user acquisition that publishers find to be extremely efficient in terms of costs. I'm not suggesting that this should be your only UA channel. There's a lot of other options out there, but we are inviting you to consider this as part of a balanced user acquisition mix and strategy. What other user acquisition are publishers using? So 54% of the publishers mentioned that they're using content creators and social media influencers. We have a case study with Wildlife Studios that you can read on our website precisely about this. Creating social communities outside the game, think Facebook groups, Discord groups, and 53% of the publishers are doing this, and 51% are using social and sort of viral activities within the game, like, for example, custom tournaments, special events, also with the idea to acquire new users. And lastly, on the user acquisition, what we're seeing is publishers are more and more learning about the importance of expanding to other markets. And this is particularly relevant if your game is localized to only certain markets and you feel like you've reached sort of the maximum or peak potential in those markets. And we see that 42% of publishers are now considering expanding to new markets. What regions are they prioritizing? 61% are saying the US, Canada, and Europe, and 60% will be focusing their attention on the APAC region. And so just to summarize some of what we said about user acquisition, just wanted the main takeaways, which is that unification of the monetization strategy and the user acquisition strategy. Also using those other levers and channels for user acquisition that might fall a little bit outside the traditional user acquisition channels that you're used to using. And especially if your game is in a very mature game market, consider also expanding globally. And so in the 4 minutes or so that we have left, going to focus on the future. So everything we looked so far has been like the current status, but we also wanted to find out from publishers, what are they doing to plan for the future? And so when asked about different platforms that publishers are considering, 3 platforms came on top: cloud gaming, browser-based games or HTML5, and AR, VR. So over 50% of publishers said that both in 2021 and 2022 that they are already developing or at least planning for cloud games and browser games. But what's interesting in this stat for me is that in 2021, only 20% said they were planning to develop for VR, but that number more than doubled. So for 2022, we have 47% saying that they are now planning to develop for VR as well. So even though it's such an early technology compared to some of the others, I think if there's any VR fans in the audience, that's quite exciting. And it shows that the market is indeed more interested in that platform. And then obviously we work with ads, so we asked the question, do you think ads work well in these new environments? The answer was yes. So for browser and cloud gaming, it's not super surprising because a lot of the ad formats, some of the techniques that we use on the native apps of iOS and Android can be used in these platforms. But what was surprising was VR. And about 50% believe that advertising also lends itself well for VR. It's a very early technology. I don't believe that anyone cracked that advertising in VR yet, but this shows that there is a lot of interest and the potential is there. What other revenue streams are they exploring besides the multi-platform? We asked them that as well. And so 53% of publishers said that they're leveraging sponsorships or licensing deals. 44% said that they're looking to gaming portals and new app stores as well. 42% said that they're expanding distribution of their games to new partners. And 28% said that they're exploring organic discovery. Doesn't mean that you as a publisher should be exploring all 4 of these, plus the ones that we mentioned, but hopefully this list will give you a little bit of inspiration on what publishers worldwide are looking into, and you might consider them for your business as well. And so we're reaching the end, almost on time, which I'm quite happy about. But this is a brief summary of everything we discussed. I don't know if you want to take a photo. I'm not going to cover it all in the interest of time, but I think the main takeaways are the importance of the hybrid IAP plus in-app ads planning for your game, whether you're launching a game or your game is already live, exploring some of these new user acquisition models, in particular cross-platform, if you're already integrating ads, and then looking ahead. What are you planning? What platforms are you considering developing games for in the coming years? You can find all this information and a lot more on our website, both on monetization and user acquisition. So there'll be some links on the presentation. And so as we reach the end, on behalf of the Meta Audience Network team and the Facebook Gaming, thanks for coming to this session. If you scan the QR code, you will be taken directly to the full report that we discuss here today. So there's a lot more information there on the answers that publishers gave us in this survey. I found it very interesting, so I think it's an excellent resource to have at hand. And so with that, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of PGC. Thank you.